2, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, rock. 5, 6,
Hello, my name is Bill Haley, and this is for Haley 2024, The Movements, Government Reform Ideas. Now this video is going to be on military capability system. How are we going to fund the military in a system of very small government? So what we're doing here is changing the foundations of government. I'm proposing a new constitution to the United States. It'll change actually the state constitutions and create local constitutions, local like city constitutions. So what we're doing here is going to a competitive governance system, but we're also separating government powers into 30 sectors. So it's a radical change, but it's a very modest proposal because we're going with a lot less governance. We're going with competitive governance, so you get to pick how much governance you want. You get to select your governance per sector of the economy, such as education or police or military. You get to select which environmental protection agency you want to be governed by. You get to have that selection. Let's go through the system so we understand it a little bit better. There's a lot of overview videos I have out there that are much longer. I'm going to try to do about 4 or 5 minute overview, so very rapidly, so we can get into the military capability system. So these are the 30 sectors I'm separating the government power into. Any elected leader, anybody with inherent government power, or anybody with an official office can only be in charge of one sector at a time. The legislative, executive, or legislative, executive, or judicial powers within one sector at a time. So nobody with inherent government power or official office can be over top of family law and the commander-in-chief, or violent crime and financial law, or food and or transportation and roads and stuff. All these are separated out, so you have different elected leaders over each one. But we're going to go more with selected leaders. Let's look at the next slide. Within each sector, within each level of government, every level of government has a complete structure. Within each sector, so the education sector, the commander-in-chief sector, the military capability system sector is what we're doing today, you get to pick from 12 different CRAs, competitive governing agencies. Now, the capability system is going to be more on the sector board level or the monopolized level. Most of everything else is at the CRA level, but there's about 5 or 6 of these sectors that need to be at the monopolized sector board level, and for a very good reason on this one. Okay, you select the one that you want to go with. Even with the military capability system, even when you have inherent power at the representative level, to get that representative comes from the CRAs. So you pick the one that you want to go with. So the Heritage Foundation or the Brookings Institute will have probably CRAs. Republican Party, Democrat Party, Constitution Party, Green Parties, Libertarians, if I said that already, will all have their CRAs or affiliated with CRAs. With about 12 of them, you have a lot of different variety. And since you're doing it per sector, you get to pick a libertarian one and, let's say, education, liberal one and, let's say, environmental control, conservative one and, let's say, policing. You get to pick how you want to per sector. You don't have to go directly Republican Party or directly, let's say, Brookings Institute. You get to pick which one you want per sector. And then you get to be governed by those things per sector. So let's keep on going. And these are full governmental systems with executive, legislative, and judicial powers. So they're powerful. But even at the sector board level where they're representative agencies up there, they're still full governmental systems with executive, legislative, and judicial powers. The rating system is going to give high quality information from a wide variety of perspectives, especially with dishing out over roughly $1 trillion for the military capability system. We're going to need a lot of good information. They're going to root out corruption, self-dealing, and a lot of corruption. So let's go over to this one. Let's just go over the Constitution real quick. You got first section is citizenship, then general laws, bylaws, or is more internal governmental organization laws. Federal, state, and local, or original authority, who has the highest authority between the CRAs, sector boards, the federal, state, and local. Supermajority is anything with monopolized power, which we're going to a monopolized power at the representative level, so we need a 70% majority. But the we have a mechanism for taking it down lower, because for things that need to happen, we want to get as much percentage as we can, but ultimately the money needs to be spent, and we have to have a system for that. Okay, the parent sector board, how that's structured. The sector board, how that's structured. 90% of everything we do is for the competitive regulatory agencies, and everything else is supporting the competitive regulatory agencies. So the sector board is a support. The parent sector board is a support. The rating system is definitely a support. Taxation, it's going to move more towards fees for the services that you're getting per sector. Your CRA is going to be charging you. How we deal with debt, with the transition from the significant debt that America has now, and the state governments and the whole 9 yards, how we deal with the debt. I have a full system for that. Pockets of freedom is immigration and foreign policy. It's important within, it is important within this sector, because pockets of freedom will have to be funded to some degree, and how that's going to be done. Sectors, partial acceptance per sector. States, partial acceptance per sector. It is important to get this amendment passed. And this is a Article 5, Constitutional Article 5 amendment to amend the Constitution. The separation of responsibilities and authorities into 30 sectors. And we sell everything we currently have. Government sells 100% of everything they have, which means military equipment, bases, aircraft carriers, the whole 9 yards. Everything NASA has, every school building, every school bus, every police station, every courthouse, everything. Now, a lot of it's going to go, all these things are still needed. So it's going to be sold into the free enterprise system that's going to be doing the services that need to be done. The police services, the law enforcement services, the court services, the jail services, the EPA services, the land still needs to be used. Certain amount of land still needs to be used as nature parks and stuff. It all gets sold to the free enterprise system, but we still need those things for what we're doing. So just because government's not doing it doesn't mean it doesn't need to be done. And within the CRA structure, you still have to do it. You have to belong to a CRA that does this stuff. So it needs to be done. You have to belong to a law enforcement and have a law enforcement contract. You have to have all these other things. You have to get an education. You have to do all the things that government's currently doing. You can just do it through the free enterprise system or through your competitive governance. So it's a completely different foundations of government. And the charity system is, I have videos out there on that. It's very important because we get rid of welfare altogether. This is a sector, the foreign protection system is a sector we're concentrating on today. I'm doing a lot of videos on each one of these. I have an overview of all of them, but this one's going to be military capability system directly and how it relates to that. I'm going to come back to this screen in a minute. Here's a violent crime mitigation system. Again, free enterprise on all this stuff. But with major representative control and accountability, a lot more than we currently have now. Healthcare, I'm not going to go through all of them. You can read them on the screen. Here's 5 more and the last 5. So we have 30 different sectors. Again, elected leaders per sector. Nobody can be in charge of more than one, at least official authority. Okay. Here are the 5 within the foreign protection system. The diplomats have a separate sector. Commander-in-chief has a separate sector. The military is going to be where most of the money is spent. Probably 90% of the money is going to be spent there. The military capability system is to have a free market system to fund the military. Not to collect the money, because the money is going to be collected through taxes. We'll get to that in a second. The military authorization agency is to give authority to anybody with inherent government power, or to take that authority back away if they start misusing that authority. So significant checks and balances, and you need a 70% vote of the American people to authorize you. 70% of the representative, or let me put it precisely. Representatives of 70% of the American people have to give approval for anybody within the foreign protection system. Okay. Always important to keep on coming back here. You are going to pick for the military capability system. You're going to pick the one that you like the best. There'll be about 12 different CRAs that are going to be in charge of funding the military. You pick the one that you want the best, and that's going to give you representation. As long as there's 5% of the people joining the same CRA that you are, then you have representation through that CRA. And there you have that representative vote for the representative system. So some of it will be pushed into the CRA level, but mostly not. It's going to be more at the sector board level. They're going to create the system, but the CRA is going to be important to give that pressure and that representation that you support them. So they're representing you and your interest and your opinions. Okay, current government assets, all bases, all forts, all ships, tanks, buildings, NASA, all the stuff, all the state departments, everything is sold to the free enterprise system or to competitive regulatory agencies, the competitive governance. We're going to use those tens of trillions of dollars. I don't know exactly whether it's going to be 2 to 10, maybe 15 trillion dollars. So we're going to get out of all this stuff. I don't know how much. We'll have to see what the market bears. But we're going to do dollar cost average over about 8 years, 1% a month. We have a system to do that. The purpose of the diplomatic foreign policy is to do that's the diplomats. So we established a diplomat sector here. We established a commander-in-chief sector. That's important to know. That's a separate command structure, separate representative bodies. And you see my cat right here. Okay, and down. Okay, the purpose of the military corporation sector is to produce a military capability capable of defending America. So the military corporations, that's the free enterprise system. That's at the CRA level. All the other 4 out of the 5 are going to be at the sector board level, the monopolized sector board level. Military corporations are going to be private sector organizations that are going to be funded by the military capability system. So it's going to bring a lot of free enterprise system into there. Military capability system is the sector we're going to concentrate on today. And let's go through the clauses on that right now. And then we'll get at the end the military authorization agency that authorizes entity with inherent power. So let's go through the clauses because that's what we're concentrating on this video is this set of clauses. But you need to know the whole system. Now, staffing up the military capability system is all the CRAs from the military capability system. So you pick the one that you want, and if your CRA has, let's say, 6%, you get 6% representation at the sector board level. If your organization has 14%, then your representative agency has 14%. So it has to be between 5 and 20% of the full sector. Let's keep on going. The military capability system sector is established. Establishing a sector means you get the 12 CRAs. And they have certain responsibilities and purposes in government. So that's important to know. The purpose of the MCS, Military Capability System sector, is to fund the military. They fund all 5 of the foreign protection system, but the main bulk of it is the military. The military capability sector has original authority at the sector board level. Highly important to state it up front that most of these decisions are going to be at the sector board level. They can throw down some to the CRA level, and some of that might happen. But we need an overall one system for the military capability system. Okay, this is how the funding is going to come in, and it's important that we go over all the different slides. We're going to take a little bit of time on this. Every state level, so it's important that we go back down to state level. We're funding the federal level, but at the state level, we're doing a lot of accountability here. Every state level, Sector 24, that's the ones that are going to be in charge of sales taxes, must collect 4% of their state's GDP to fund the federal level Sector 9, and 1% of their state's GDP to fund their state Sector 9. So what does that mean? It means 5% altogether, 4% of their GDP going to the federal level, 1% of their GDP going to the state level. So the state's going to get 20% of the money, federal's going to get 80% of the money. So it's highly important to understand that. The foreign trade tax taxes funding Sector 9 reduces the percentage required from Sector 24. So foreign trade, we collect 5% tax because we have to deal with the border. We have to have military ships out there to protect transportation from the big tanker ships or whatever coming over here with the container ships and the oil tankers and all the ships doing trade. We need to protect them. They need to pay for that, 5%. But that's not going to increase over top of the 5%, so it reduces down how much we have to collect from sales taxes. So 5% of GDP is our goal ultimately, so we reduce it down with foreign trade tax. So we're not just adding to the funding, it's being subtracted from the sales tax. A total of 5% of the nation's national GDP must fund the foreign protection system. So that's the underlying goal, is 5% of GDP. So this is constitutional clause. Another constitutional clause. Foreign entities legally doing business in America are subject to the state level uniform taxes used to attain the Sector 9 funding requirements. So foreign companies in America are just like American companies. They have to pay the regular tax, sales tax, to fund the military. In addition to that, the federal Sector 24 Sector Board must collect a uniform 5% of the gross value of goods crossing American borders, both into and out of America, to fund federal level Sector 9. So foreign trade is, you have a 5% tax on that to fund the military. Highly important to understand that, but whatever you collect from that gets subtracted, so you don't need to collect as much from sales tax. And that is just important to understand. 20% of the MCS, military capability funding, must stay in escrow. So we collect 5%, 80% of it going to the federal, 20% going to the state. But 20% of the MCS funding, which 20% off the state level and 20% off the federal level. So whatever percentages that requires for that. Okay, that's going to go into escrow. So 20% of the state's money goes into escrow, 20% of the federal money goes into escrow. And that is released only if there's a major war. And it takes a 70% vote of the diplomats to fund that. So if there's a major war, they can dip into the escrow. So a war happens only when 70% of the diplomats declare war. It needs a 70% supermajority to declare war. We don't want war to happen often, but when we need it, we want it to happen, and it needs to be a 70% vote. The release of funds must accompany an authorization of the use of force, a full declaration of war, or a use of force. The release vote must be renewed every 30 days. We don't want it open-ended. And the escrow account must only hold Sector 19 currency, the back dollar. You have to understand my new currency. It's a competitive currency. You have to understand that. The declaration of war escrow account can be freed up by a 50% vote of the federal parent sector board if the military action is on or approaching American soil. So the military can be used outside of American borders only by diplomatic vote of 70%. But if there's any foreign foes attacking American soil, there's no authorization needed. The commander-in-chief has original authority without any vote whatsoever to push back and repel those forces. They can use those military forces. So if somebody attacks Alaska, Florida, California, wherever on American soil, we get to push back immediately. And what the commander-in-chief does, they have access to any military forces, and they don't need a vote to do that. If military action is or approaching American soil, the release vote must be renewed every 30 days. But they get to push back, but then the funding has to come from the parent sector board. The federal parent sector board has authority with a 70% vote to increase the GDP tax percentage regarding a sizable military action. So if there's a major war and it's prolonged and you still have that 70%, then that federal parent sector board might have to increase that 5% of GDP up to 6 or 7%. But again, that's going to have to be renewed every 30 days, every 60 days, something like that. And 40% can pull that back and put that back down to 5%. The military capability system sector funds all 5 of the sectors. So it's important to understand that they're not just funding the military, they're funding the commander-in-chief sector, the diplomats, which means the full State Department, the full officer corps. They're funding themselves, the military capability system, and they're funding the military authorization agency. And they're funding all the rating systems. So they have to determine how much money is going to go to the rating systems, how much money is going to go to the commander-in-chiefs, all the officer corps. They have to determine how much money is going to all 5 of the sectors. The bulk of it going to the military because they have to buy the aircraft carriers and the planes and all that stuff. So my prediction is 85 to 90% is going to go to there. Maybe a little bit of foreign aid is going to have to come out of this, and I'll get to that screen in a minute, so I won't get ahead of myself. The MCS, Military Capability System representatives must set up a funding arrangement designed to produce a suitable military force. So it uses the word must, and the word must here in constitutional language is going to trigger my multi-level voting system in my, if you can't get 70% using my must, then we go to a multi-level voting system where proposals are proposed. The 5 proposals with the most support are the 5 set proposals, and then one is eliminated per round of voting until you get to 2, and then the system picks one of the 2. So it's a multi-round voting system. So a must means you have to have a funding arrangement. It has to be free enterprise using free competition, and each MC has to be able to have free competition for each part of the military budget. What I'm talking about here is they might say, I want 15% of my money built on airplanes and air power to dominate the air. I want 16% of my money dominating the seas. I want aircraft carriers, battle ships, and the like. I want maybe 2% of my money on submarines. I want 3% of my money for the military budget for nuclear weapons. I want 38% of my money on personnel on ground forces. I want tanks to be 5% of my money. That kind of stuff. I know I didn't do the percentages right there. That's not this video. This is a structure. I don't create that through this. The military capability system will create the percentages, and there'll probably be some percentages for new stuff, advanced stuff. There's going to be a lot of different things. There's definitely going to be a percentage for satellites and the like. So how they do it is not part of my problem. I'm doing the structure, but the language in the Constitution is saying free competition for each part of the military budget, and that's very important. Sector 9's funding of MCs must be proportional to an MC's percentage of overall military capabilities. So let's say they have $500 billion. The whole budget is $1 trillion, is roughly 5% of GDP. 80% of that's going to go into the escrow, so that's down to 800,000. Let's say between all the rating systems, the commander-in-chief sector, the military capability system, the authorization, let's say that's another 10%. So let's say that takes it down to 700,000, 600,000 for military capabilities. And they're probably going to do a 20% live action budget where they want training to be 20% of the budget. So they'll motivate the military corporations to do a lot of training, and when you do a lot of training, you're going to lose aircraft, you're going to lose a boat, you're going to wear out your equipment faster, you're going to ruin and waste ammunition, and we want that for proper training. So it'd be a budget for training. So there'd be a lot of budgets out there, and people are going to be building their military corporations and gaining capabilities. They're going to say, I want to build an aircraft carrier battle group consisting of a battleship, submarines, aircraft carrier, and the like. Other people are going to say, I want to build a new type of boat, new type of ship, new type of whatever. Somebody's going to say, I want to build a new type of aircraft. Well, ultimately, what is their capabilities? What is their military capabilities? If you go out there with a bunch of muskets and untrained personnel, they're not very capable. If you go out there with somebody with highly trained, good body armor, well trained with their own weapons, really good weapons, reliable weapons with good vehicles and very good, let's say, drones over top, and just very, very capable with many missiles and different things, a lot of capability there. A unit of ragtag, untrained personnel, not very well trained, not very capable, not going to get much money, so it's not going to happen. I think you understand what I'm trying to get at here. Other than funding MCs, so military corporations are going to be funded based off capabilities. The rest of this clause is everything else has to be done by proportion of membership. So your RA is going to be done by membership. So RA of any of the sectors are going to be done by, if you have 11% of membership or 11% of the citizens in this one particular RA, they're going to get 11% of the money for that rating system. If you have 11% of the or 12% of the military commanders, the commander-in-chief sector, you're going to get 11% of the budget for the commander-in-chief sector. So some's proportional to membership, but military corporations proportional to capabilities. And that's going to keep the rule of prices working. And we want to really use a lot of language, and maybe I need to get a little bit better language, using more free enterprise language to make sure the military corporations can compete for every part of the budget, which I have that in there, and other language might need to be put in here, and advice from a lot of different people after they read this might be able to get more advice. But we want to stay away from the military capability system picking and choosing what weapon system to build and what not to build. We don't want that. We don't want micromanage from the government. We want these military corporations to say, we want to invest in this because we think it's going to give a return on our investment. Return on investment is a very, very valuable thing because they need to create very high value. If you put $1 billion into a new company and new equipment, but it turns out to not have very good use or use very good military capabilities, they're going to fail. They're not going to get much funding. They're going to have to abandon that project, sell off the pieces, and the people who did it well are going to get more money. So that's what the rule of prices and competition can do for you. So we'll have to see what language we can actually ultimately put into the clauses to make sure the military military capability system is not picking and choosing. They put out a budget saying 12% going to air power, 12% for nuclear power, 8% for submarine power, and all that kind of stuff. The MCS, Military Capability System, sector's rating system must set a rating floor regarding military funding corruption. Now, I probably don't need this in here because that's part of the clauses of the rating system anyway. That's in every sector, the rating system has the ability to put in or handle corruption. That's a normal rating system clause. So I'll probably take this one out, but it's still there. But it's a repetitive clause. And I'll probably take that one out because it's repetitive, but it's still there because it's in the rating system. The rating systems always take care of corruption, self-dealing, and they can put a rating floor to make sure they can take care of that. And the rating system, they're going to have people in there that can look at everything. Your product is military capabilities, and if you're going to accept military money, you have to open your books to the rating system. They'll have some privacy protections, but they get to look at everything. They need to deal with corruption big time. Foreign aid must come out of the Sector 9 budget. So there's not a lot of places that's going to get foreign aid because they need a 70%, but places like Israel might reach that threshold, and that might be a good thing because we don't want to utilize American forces to fight Israel's battle. We'll rather just pay them to fight their own battles because they are under such threat. Now, this video, or Haley 2024, the movement, has no opinion on whether Israel is good or bad, or whether we should fund them or not. But I'm just saying there might be enough support for something like Israel where there's not going to be necessarily the support for another foreign aid. Now, funding poverty relief, that's going to be done separately, not through the military budget, not through the foreign policy budget, not through foreign aid. We have that separately through the charity system and foreign taxes for foreign trade. So there's a tax for foreign trade, and part of that's going to go towards helping the world poverty relief. So that's separated. A 40% vote of either sectors repeals the foreign aid. So foreign aid is not going to happen often, but there are a couple countries where it's very much needed, and I think they're going to get that 70%. So it's important. This clause does not affect the charitable foreign aid in the charity system. So two separate things. Foreign trade has a 5% for the military, and that affects this. And 5% for the charity system. That's a totally separate thing, going to the charity system, not to the military system. The purpose of the Military Authorization Agency sector is to authorize everyone with inherent government power within the foreign protection system. So this is the next sector. So it's important to understand that we just changed sectors here. Okay. I'll just go ahead and you can read it if you want to. It's on my website. But all of NASA is going to go to be funded out of this as well. So whatever budget NASA has is going to come out of this budget. So they get to decide, the military capability system decides how much it's worth to put money into space exploration. Now, some's going to be space exploration for military purposes, and some's going to be for private I don't want to say private purposes, but non-military forces. So that's important to understand. So look at that. So here are the 30 sectors again. Here's 15 of the sectors: charity system, foreign protection system, and violent crime. You have to understand where it's fitting in. Here's 15 more sectors, so you understand where that's coming from. The full system of CRA, so in the military capability system, again, you're selecting your CRA, the one that you agree with most, whether it's the Republican Party, Democrat Party, Heritage Foundation, Brookings Institute, and the like. Here's my last slide, and we're putting out a lot more videos over the course of June to understand how everything fits together. So please consider a donation to Haley 2024, the movement. I just need a social media person, a little bit of somebody to help me edit the issues, and just somebody to help me get the word out there. So until the next video.